There was no way not to cover what happened to Anthony Weiner, not after the New York Post caught him sexting with another woman. This was the third time, and not after his wife announced they were separating.
It is about the last thing Hillary Clinton's campaign needed, a scandal involving the husband of her top aide, Huma Abedin. Anthony Weiner, the former New York congressman, was caught sexting again.
It's an announcement that had immediate reverberations in the political world because Abedin is one of Hillary Clinton's top advisors.
But did this warrant leading two of the three network evening newscasts and front-page stories in the Washington Post and the New York Times, whose headline was, "Weiner's lewd messages cast shadow on the campaign"? Joining us now, Gail Trotter, who writes for the Daily Caller and The Hill, and Mara Liasson of National Public Radio, also a Fox News contributor. Mara, why is this Anthony Weiner embarrassment worthy of that kind of coverage, and especially the New York Times saying it's cast a shadow on the Hillary Clinton campaign?
I think that's really an exaggeration. I don't think it is worthy, but it's one of those things where try to look away. You know, it's like an incredibly compelling car wreck, and people want to hear about it. Now, it's a perfect tabloid story. Why the New York Times would say it cast a shadow on the campaign? Because it's a bad thing to happen. It's not good news, and it has to do with her top aide. That's, I guess, about it.
Gail, I get Anthony Weiner was a congressman. He ran for mayor of New York. There was a documentary made about that, so it's news. But is this an attempt by many in the media to take an essentially tabloid story and kind of pump it up with some political significance?
I would agree with that, and I think the conservative media like Breitbart, National Review, PJ Media, The Drudge Report, they're all going crazy with frustration because they know the real scandals that are happening, and they feel like this is a distraction by talking about this. But the story is salacious. It was reckless behavior. Think of his proximity to power, and they couldn't not cover it.
Well, on that point, and I'll let you make your point, everyone quoted the Trump statement. Donald Trump said Hillary Clinton was careless and negligent, just to read it, in allowing Weiner to have such close proximity to highly classified information. But that's assuming that Huma Abedin, who's Hillary Clinton's closest advisor, was reckless in allowing her husband to see any of this stuff.
Which we have no way of knowing. And that's why, even though you say the conservative media was anxious to cover the real scandals, Donald Trump wanted to cover this scandal. He wanted to pump it up as much as possible and make a connection between classified information and Anthony Weiner, which is tenuous at best.
Political reports that the marriage was essentially estranged already, had been for some time. But now, also from this New York Times story, says it threatens to remind voters about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. Really?
Yeah, well, it certainly does. And the interesting thing is I went back and looked at when he first had to resign from Congress. Tim Kaine, that name might be familiar to you, at the time when Anthony was a congressman and had to resign, Tim Kaine said lying is unforgivable. Lying publicly about something like this is unforgivable, and he should resign.
But the difference is Anthony Weiner is not running for public office, and he's married to someone who was certainly a key part of Hillary Clinton's campaign, but it just seems like one step removed, no?
Right, but Tim Kaine is saying that lying about sexting is unforgivable, but now he's signed on to be vice president of Hillary Clinton's campaign when she lied on this very network about her email and the scandals and the pay-for-play stuff and the classified information.
Let me move on to the media debate about psychopaths. Here is former Obama campaign manager David Plouffe on Meet the Press.
I mean, basically, we have a psychopath running for president. I mean, he meets the clinical definition, okay?
Wait a minute.
Hillary Clinton,
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Do you really think diagnosing people on air, and I assume you don't have a degree in psychology. Is that fair?
But I think it's worth asking someone in the mental health community if this is someone you'd want to look, are these signs of something that perhaps could lead to a diagnosis?
You know what?
All right, so David Plouffe is a partisan Democrat, and Chuck Todd, to his credit, did push back. We didn't play the whole thing, but it fuels more media chatter about, is Trump crazy? And that's probably what the Democrats wanted.
Yes, it's what the Democrats want. It's over the line. It's just as bad as Donald Trump saying, oh, Hillary had a concussion. She's not with it. There's something wrong with her mentally. And then all those false stories about that her aides carried a syringe. It's all out of line. And, you know, after the Goldwater election, some group of American psychiatrists signed a letter and pledged to a policy that they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't diagnose someone from afar. And they're psychiatrists. So David Plouffe, who maybe is playing a psychiatrist on TV, shouldn't do it either.
Is this a case of letting a top Democratic strategist set the media's agenda?
Oh, yes, it is. And when you think about it, it's the boy who cried wolf. If they go to DEFCON 1 on every issue and come up with the most, outrageous smears on Donald Trump, then people start tuning him out because they see that, Donald Trump is not a psychopath. And, it also hurts people who are from families with actual mental illness, that they use that kind of rhetoric when they are using it in a non-medical fashion. And it does allow the media to set the agenda based on what the Democrats are saying.
I understand a lot of people feel strongly about Trump, but, how did a psychopath win the Republican nomination, build a global business, and so forth? So you seem to be in agreement that this was going too far.
Yes, there's so many things that Donald Trump has said that are objectionable just by their very own selves. You don't have to diagnose his mental condition.
I have no objection to looking at his own words. It's these phrases, these incendiary phrases that the media shouldn't use.
On that one, we are in agreement.
Marla Eisen, Gail Trotter, thanks very much for joining